Welcome back to Maths by Mansell. Today's topic is multiplication. Before I teach this one, actually, I wanted to go into a bit of a motivational rant, really. This is one that's quite triggering. Quite a lot of students sort of learn their times tables through rote learning and struggle with it for some time. I just wanted to emphasize that maths is like any other skill. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to not be right all the time and learn from those mistakes and correct them in due course. You're not supposed to know it straight away. And I think there's this obsession with being either right or wrong. It's completely okay to be wrong. You just learn from that and move on. So with multiplication, I'm going to teach it through the column method. I'm going to emphasize on thinking about the digits in their correct value. However, to speed up the process, we are going to use the column method to just multiply single digit by single digit. So take the numbers, 53 multiplied by 24. The way we set that up is, again, like addition and subtraction, making sure the columns are lined up. So units under units, start with 53. And I'm actually going to start with the 4 for 24 to make sure my units are lined up. And you'll see why that's important when we go into 3 digits. So 24 goes underneath the 53. And here we start to multiply from bottom right. So it's units times both. What I'm essentially doing is breaking up the multiplication to do 4 times 53 and then 20 times 53. We're just breaking it up. And even the 4 times 53, we're further breaking that down by first doing 4 times 3 and then 4 times 50. What's actually going to happen is you're doing 4 separate multiplications and then combining them for your final answer. So over time, actually, you might be able to do this in your head. So let's start with the 4. Now 4 times 3 is 12. And I'm going to write the unit under there. I actually like to put the tens just away from my actual multiplication. Now some students and some teachers teach it as put it with the next column. I actually like to put it away just so that it doesn't clutter how you're working and confuse you afterwards. So we've now carried that 10, which now leaves me to do 4 times 50. And yes, you've heard that right. It's 4 times 50 and not just 5. What we're going to do is make that easier by thinking of it as 4 times 5, but in fact, you're timesing by 50. So the correct answer is actually 200, which means when we add the 10, which is what we carried in the first place, we're actually going to get 210, which is why the answer starts in the hundreds column. So 210. Feel free to think about it as 4 times 5 is 20 and add 1, which is 21, and write it there, lining up the columns. But honestly, if you just take your time and think of it as 4 times 50, it makes the whole thing make sense a little bit more. Now, we're going to start the next set of multiplications. You've probably been taught that I'll just write a 0 here, but I'd like to explain that. Now, if we start with a 2, we're not actually multiplying 2. What we're now doing is multiplying 20 by 3. And because it's 20 by 3, my answer is going to go underneath the tens column, which means that actually I need to hold that place with a 0 so that I don't get confused. So if we're doing 20 times 3, that gives us 60. So you can write the 6 here and you can see it looks like 60. And now I'm going to do the 20 times 50. That's quite a large multiplication to think about in your head. So we're now going to do 2 times 5, which is 10, and write that as 10 here. Now, the real answer was actually 1,000, because 20 times 50 is 2 times 5, which is 10. Now, the 2 zeros we ignored actually go on the end of that. So that's actually now 1,000, which is why this one here has ended up in the thousands column. The final thing to do is to now add up those separate numbers. So 2 plus 0 is 2. If you haven't watched the addition video, please do watch that now. That will help you with this. 10 plus 60 is 70. Or again, 1 plus 6 is okay, is 7. 200 plus 0 hundredths is 200. And 1,000 is on its own. I can think of that as 0 thousandths. So I've only got 1,000. Final answer is 1,272. Now try a 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication for yourself. So let's go with 12 times 67. Feel free to pause the video and have a go at that yourself. Okay, so 12 times 67, I'm going to start with the 12, clearly separating the columns. And the 67, I'm actually going to start with the units to go under the units and the tens to go under the tens. So if we now multiply that, so I'm going to start with 7 times both 2 and 10. 7 times 2 is 14. So you write the unit underneath the units and carry the tens. And 7 times 10 is 70, but we carry the 10, so that's now 80. However, if you struggle with tens, you can just think of that 7 times 1, which is 7, plus the 1, which is 8, and put it in the tens column. Right, how we start the next bit is crucial. Again, we're not multiplying 6 anymore. This number is in fact 60. Probably might help to actually cross that out. And I didn't do that in my previous example. Whatever works easier for you, so it doesn't confuse you later. But we're doing 60 times 2 now, which is 120. Hence why I need to make sure I start here with a 0, because actually the 120 puts a 2 in my tens column, which means I have to now carry the 100 again with a 1 here, so that when I'm doing 60 times 10, I don't forget to add that on. So your final multiplication is 60 times 10, which is in fact 6 with 2 zeros, so 600. And I'm going to add that 100 that I carried earlier to make that 700. So here's my hundreds column. So the 7 goes in my hundreds column. And all I have to do now is add those to make up my final answer. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 80 plus 20 is in fact 100. So 0 tens, I'm going to carry the 1 to my hundreds column. So 100 plus 700 is in fact 800, giving you a final answer of 804. So well done if you got that right. But if you didn't, remember my little speech and little rant, it's okay. Learn from any mistakes that you made and have a go again. Talking of that, here's another one. I'm actually going to make this a bit more challenging, like I do with the others. Let's give you a 3-digit by 2-digit multiplication. So have a go at 345 multiplied by 89. Even the digits are quite difficult. So, big times tables there. Again, don't worry if you make mistakes. We'll just correct them and move on. Right. So 345, keeping my columns nice and separate. So hundreds, tens, units. And starting with the units with the 89 to make sure they line up. So 9 on the units and 80 under the 40. Let's now multiply those. 9 times 5 is 45. So we're going to write the 5 and carry the 4. 9 times 40 is 360. But with these numbers, they're quite big. So 9 times 4 is 36 is okay, because now we're going to add that 36 to 4 to give us 40 again. I mean, the 0 goes here because there's 0 units. But the 40, I'm going to sort of just cross that out and put another 4 here to remind myself I'd already done that before. And then 9 times 300 is in fact 2,700. But again, quite a large sum. So 9 times 3 is 27. Plus 4 is the way to speed that up and make it a bit simple. So I'll just go again. 9 times 3, 27. Plus the 4 we carried is 31. The number is in fact 3,100. So the 1 goes in the hundreds column and the 3 goes in the thousands column. We now start with a tens column, which means we have to hold this place here, the units with a 0. There's no units involved anymore. I'm going to cross out that 4 I used earlier so that it doesn't confuse me for later. Okay, so start with an 80 multiplied by 5. That's in fact 400. But again, to make your life easier, you could just think of that as 8 times 5 is 40. Put the 0 here and carry that 400 as a 4. And 8 times, lots of 4s here. 8 times 4 is 32. We are doing 80 times 40. There's a large number. So the answer is in fact 3,200. So I need to be careful of that. So the 32, 8 times 4, I'm going to have to add this 4 here. So that's now 36. I'm going to carry that 6. Sorry, I'm going to write the 6 as a unit, apologies, and carry that 3, which is actually would have been in the thousands column. Okay, I'm going to write it as 3. The final thing to do is my 80 times 300, which we're going to do as 8 times 3, being 24. Add that 3 to make it a 27. The 7 goes in the thousands column, is in fact 27,000. So my 2 is now in the tens of thousands column, giving me a final sum of 5 plus 0, which is 5. 0 tens plus 0 tens is 0 tens. 100 plus 600 is in fact 700. 3,000 plus 7,000 is 10,000. So I'm going to have to carry that 1 here into my tens thousands. And 10,000 plus 20,000 is in fact 30,000. So my final answer is 30,705. Right, well done if you got that right. But again, if you didn't, have another go. Maybe go back and rewatch the video and have a go at both questions again. And hopefully over time, you can continue to improve. You don't have to always be right. Thank you.